Good day, students. So today we will be having our discussion. It will be about the history of animation. Okay, so this will be our objective for today's lesson. For you to be able to understand the use of animation, identify the general history of animation, and identify the tools for creating animation. So now, to start, the history of animation started long before the development of cinematography. So, for the information of everyone, cinematography is the art of motion picture photography and filming either electronically by means of an image sensor or chemically by means of light-sensitive materials such as film stock. The example of that is this video recording camera. Okay? So, humans have probably attempted to depict motion as far back as Paleolithic period. So, bago pa pala nagkaroon ng animation, yung mga tao, they attempted to try to animate during the Paleolithic period. So, sir, what's Paleolithic period? Okay, so Paleolithic period, also called the Old Stone Age, is a period in human prehistory distinguished by the original development of stone tools. So, meaning, ito yung age na yung mga tao gumagamit pa sila ng mga bato bilang tools nila sa pang-araw-araw nilang gawain. So ito yung mga tao na nakatira din sa mga bahay na kumbaga more on pinag-combine na mga stone. And most of the materials being used comes from stone. Okay, so ganun na pala katagal yung first attempt na i-try to animate or to try to do some animation. So but they don't know yet that it was animation. So they are just trying at that time. So much later, shadow play and magic lantern offered popular show with projected image on a screen, moving as a result of manipulation by hand and minor mechanics. Yan. So, ito naman yung time na shadow play and magic lantern were introduced. I know you're familiar with shadow play. Shadow play, if you know the group El Gama Penumbra, so I think they won the I'm not sure if it's American Got Talent. Basta Got Talent yung anuhan nata nila, napanalunan. Or Asia ata. Parang Asia's Got Talent. Okay, so shadow play is one of isa sa mga klase na nag-show ng animation, and it is through light. Tapos merong shadow na napoproduce gamit yung light, and they create different kind of object. Okay, so shadow play, also known as shadow puppetry, is an ancient form of storytelling and entertainment which uses flat articulated cutouts, figures which are held between a source of light and a translucent screen such as screen. The cutout shapes and the puppet sometimes include translucent color or other types of detailing. So, ito, if gumagamit kayo nito, yung plastic na colored plastic used for arts and nagka-cut out kayo. Various effects can be achieved by moving both the puppets and the light source. No. So, a talented puppeteer can make the figures appear to walk, dance, fight, nod, or laugh. So, ito yung example niya. Ayan. So, these are created using plastic, colored plastic, and papers, mga papel, ganyan. And merong ilaw na nanggagaling dito. Tapos, inaiilawan yung mga puppet. And then, meron kang white background para i-reflect yung shadow nung pinapakita mo. And sa likod, dun yung mga nanonood. Okay, tapos napansin nyo, ito yung na kumaga puppeteer. Tapos meron siya microphone dito. Nagsasalita siya. So, dinadub niya yung script ng dalawa. Okay, yung storyline. Also, we have magic lantern. Ito naman, itong magic lantern. Also known by its Latin name, Lanterna Magica, is an early type of image projector that use pictures, paintings, prints, or photographs on transparent plates. And one or more lenses and a light source. It was mostly developed in the 1700 or 17th century and commonly used for entertainment purposes. So, nung unang panahon, meron na palang projector, mga 17th century. Pinoproject yung image gamit ito. So, mapapansin nyo to. So, parang meron siyang disc. Tapos, sa disc na yan, parang merong background, merong something happening that can be flashed sa screen. Okay? And sa panahon na 1833, the stroboscopic disc, better known as the penacestoscope, introduced yung stroboscopic principle of the modern animation. So, which decades later would also provide the basis for cinematography, yung sinabi ko kanina. So, ito yung naging basihan nung cinematography, yung tinatawag nating stroboscopic disc. So, to better understand itong kasi sabi yung stroboscopic disc daw, better known as penacestoscope, inintroduce niya yung stroboscopic principle. So, let us first understand ano ba yung penacestoscope or penacestoscope. So, ito daw was first widespread animation device. So, animation device siya, quote and quote, animation device that created a fluent illusion of motion. So, parang gumawa siya daw ng fluent na illusion of motion na parang gumagalaw talaga yung isang eksena or yung mga tao or objects. So, it was dubbed phantascope or stroboscopic chivien. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right. French kasi. By its inventor. So, it was been known under very many other names until the French product name penacestoscope became common. So, yun na yung kumbaga ginagamit na term para sa kanya. So, ito yung ano niya, ito yung concept, ito yung disc. So, di ba, stroboscopic disc daw sabi. The stroboscopic disc o kaya mas kilala sa penacestoscope. So, ito yon. Yan. So I will be showing you a clip, or yeah, a clip from Google showing the motion of the stroboscopic disc. Ito yan. Okay? So, ito siya, it's a still image. Hindi yan gumagalaw na image. Parang drawing lang yan. Tapos, pinapaikot lang siya. Kung mapapansin nyo, ayan o. So, meron siyang parang butas. Tapos, yung butas na yan, meron diyang naka-connectang small tube. Tapos, pwede mo siyang paikutin. So, tapos, para na siyang gumagalaw. Para na siyang nag-a-animate. Okay? So, yan po yung pinakestoscope or stroboscopic disc. Okay. So, ano naman yung stroboscopic effect? So, yung stroboscopic effect is a visual phenomenon caused by aliasing that occurs when continuous motion is represented by a series of short or instantaneous sample. So, it occurs when the view of a moving object is represented by a series of short sample as distinct from a continuous view. The term continuous, no? And the moving object is in rotational or other cyclic motion at a rate close to the sampling rate. So, ito yan. Wait lang. Ayan. So, this is an example of stroboscopic effect. Let's say, for example, there is an image, a drone image of a woman doing acrobat, and frame by frame, so parang second by second, nung ginawa niya yung pag-acrobat, na nare-register yung mga steps na nangyayari. So, ganun yung concept nung stroboscopic effect. So, may ipapakita akong another clip sa internet. Ito. So, depending on the frequency ng flash, again, sabi ko nga, it's a still image. Hindi siya gumagalaw na image. Pero, gamit yung animation na para siyang continuous na gumagalaw, tapos pinapaikot mo siya gamit yung stroboscopic effect, para na siyang gumagalaw, para siyang buhay. So, this is an example, no? So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung pointer nung clock, umiikot siya. Then, every time na nagpa-flash, yung kulay gray, mapapansin mo, para siyang nawawala and then bumabalik. So, if meron kang series of animation na tinatakpan mo every time na hindi siya ipapakita, tapos pag ipapakita na siya, ipa-flash siya. So, nagkakaroon ngayon ng effect na para siyang umiikot. Pero, hindi naman talaga siya umiikot. Parang nagpa-flash lang. Okay? Nagpa-flash lang yung mga sabihin nating pangharang or yung image, no, na ipinapakita. Yun lang yung ipina-flash. So, ito kasi, dito, pinakita yung buo. So, hindi naman siya tinakpan. But, you can animate this, pero gagawa ka ng madaming drawing. Tapos, habang nag-acrobat siya, so for example, yung first page, yung mag-acrobat pa lang siya, or gagawin niya pa lang yung acrobatic technique na gusto niya. Then, next page, yung next step, hanggang sa matapos. So, tapos, yun yung ipi-play mo ngayon na para siyang animation na gumagalaw. Okay? So, sa panahon na 1895 and 1920, so ito naman, di ba, we started from the Stone Age. So, ito naman, mga 80s na, no? 80s to 90s. So between 1895 and 1920, during the rise of the cinematic industry, bago na uso yung mga um, palabas, several different animation techniques were developed. So kasama na dyan yung stop motion with objects, puppets, clay, or cutouts, and drone or painted animation. So tama nga naman because puppets, di ba sabi ko, shadow play. Shadow play were developed or are being practiced even bago pa nauso yung mga palabas. So, syempre, gano'n naman talaga yung cycle, di ba? Bago mauso yung isang bagay, bago siya become fully developed, merong mga pioneering na nagpa-practice na nun hanggang sa ma-develop siya. So, also, yung hand-drawn animation, and mostly animation painted on cells was the dominant technique throughout most of the 20th century and became known as the traditional animation. Ito naman, yung tinutukoy dito is yung cells. Yung cells daw, ito yung ginagamit nung mga 20th century. Naging dominant technique siya sa pag-animate. So, ganito yung description ng cell. Okay, let us understand ano ba yung cell na tinutukoy ko. A cell, short for celluloid, it is a transparent sheet on which objects are drawn or painted for traditional hand-drawn animation. Pag sinabi nating traditional hand-drawn animation, ito yung sulat, dinodrawing mo gamit yung kamay mo, yung lapis, saka yung papel, no? Tapos yung tawag dun sa papel is a cell or celluloid. So, actual celluloid was used during the first half of 20th century. But since papel nga siya, it was flammable and dimensionally unstable, it was largely replaced by a cellulose acetate. So, ganito yung itsura ng cell. Okay, celluloid. So, para siyang I'm sure nakakita na kayo niyan if meron kayong parang basta puti siya, parang comparable ata siya dun sa papel na ginagamit ng mga architect pag nagdo-drawing sila ng bahay. Pag nagdo-drawing sila ng plan, blueprint ng bahay, dun parang celluloid ata yun yung ginagamit. So, yun yung unang ginagamit nung first half ng 20th century. But since it was flammable, so it was replaced. No? Okay. So, around the turn of the millennium, computer animation became the dominant animation technique. Ito na, nauso na yung mga computer sa panahon natin ngayon. In most regions, computer animation is mostly associated with a three-dimensional appearance with detailed shading, although many different animation styles have been generated or simulated with computers. So, ito yung itsura, no? Ito yung itsura ng mga animators sa panahon natin in the 20th century. So, usually, they use computer, like literal na computer, mga PC. They also, some also have their tablets, and they install some applications used for drawing. Less paper na. So that's why the computer animation was adapted by the animator because of yun nga, less paper, coloring materials, lapis, etc. Because it's also digital na. Wala na masyadong kailangan. So, basta meron ka nung pang draw. So, naka-install naman na yung mga colors, different colors, various colors. So, marami kang pwedeng pagpilian. Mostly, three-dimensional na yung mga drawings. And kung mapapansin nyo, pag sinabi natin three-dimensional, yung parang bilog yung ano niya, yung characteristic or attributes nung dinodrawing nyo. Like for example, ito. Yan. Di ba para siyang three-dimensional? Or hindi siya para, three-dimensional talaga siya. Pag tiningnan mo. Una pa lang, pag tiningnan mo, hindi siya flat. Kasi mapapansin mo, parang buo yung drawing. Parang pag tiningnan mo sa likod, meron talaga. So, compare naman doon sa mga flat drawing. Compare natin. Saan na yun? Ito. Oops. Ayan. Di ba ito mga flat drawing? So, mapapansin nyo, parang plain lang siya na drawing. Flat. And compare no dito sa 3D. So, malaki talaga yung difference. Okay, so alamin natin yung early approach naman to motion in art. So, eto, babalik tayo, no? Babalik tayo sa panahon. So, early approach to motion in art. So, we have the number one, drawing of an Egyptian burial chamber mural. Approximately, ito, 4,000 years old. Showing wrestler in action. Early example of attempts to capture the phenomenon of motion into a still drawing can be found in Paleolithic cave paintings. Ito yung sinasabi ko, na during the Paleolithic period may mga paintings na nakikita sa mga caves. So, there were animals and sometimes mga tao, no? They were being depicted with multiple legs in superimposed position or in series that can be interpreted as one animal in different positions. So, ito yan. Ito yung example niya. So, researchers usually found mga ganito sa mga kuweba during Paleolithic period. And this is an example of two humans na nag-wrestling with each other. Ayan. So, usually may mga ganyan. So, para siyang series of action, pero parang magkakatabi yung pagkakadrawing. Tapos, pag tinignan mo, para siyang naglalaban. Yan. Hanggang sa dulo. So, ganyan dati. Ganyan dati yung pag-animate nila. Sobrang old school, kumbaga. So, also, animation before film. Ito naman, bago yung film. Okay, bago yung nauso yung mga digital camera, mga electronics. So, yung kanina, yung number 1 kanina, ito yung early approach to motion in arts. Okay? So, gumamit sila ng parang mga ganito na inuukit nila sa mga pader kung saan man, sa wall. Yan. O, ito naman, animation before film. So, in April 1825, the first Tomatrop was published by W. Phillips. So, in anonymous association with John Arton Paris, and became a popular toy. So, this one, para siyang naging laruan. A Tomatrop is an optical toy that was popular in the 19th century. I think baka mayroon ng nakakita sa inyo ng ganito. I'm not sure. A disc with a picture on each side. So ito yung description niya. So it's a disc on a with a picture on both sides, attached two pieces of string. So merong naka-attach na dalawang string. Then when the string are twirled quickly between the fingers, the two pictures appeared or blend unto one due to the persistence of vision. So parang pag twinist mo siya, parang nagme-merge yung dalawang image. So ganito yung itsura niya. Ganito yung itsura niya. Ayan. So pagkabilaan yan, dulo-dulo. Then pag twinist mo, parang pumapasok ngayon yung flower dito sa base, tapos yung wording dito sa taas, at itong wording dito sa baba, magiging isang image. So para siyang naging toy nung panahon. Okay? So that's tomatro. So next we also have ito, pinaka-stethoscope. So it was 1833. This one is regarded as one of the first form of moving media entertainment that paved the way for the future motion picture and film industry. So like yung GIF na mga animations. So it can only show yung short continuous loop. Okay? So di ba yung GIF ano lang, seconds lang. So ganun din yung pinaka-stethoscope. So, ito ulit siya. So, kanina pinakita ko siya. So, mabilis lang yan. Ilang segundo lang yan pag umikot. Then, tapos na agad. Okay? So, third one is Sotro. Ano naman yung Sotro? So, it was 1833 to 1866. So, in July 1833, Simon Stamfer described the possibility of using the stroboscope principle in a cylinder, so as well as on a loop strips, in a pamphlet accompanying the second edition of his version of the pinaka-stethoscope. British mathematician William George Horner suggested a cylindrical variation of the two pinaka-stethoscope in January 1834. So ganito yung itsura naman nung Sotro. Ayan. So kung mapapansin nyo, para siyang disc din, pero yung ano niya, parang malaking cylindrical, no? Tapos merong nandoon sa gilid yung mga image. Ayan. Tapos pag umiikot yan, doon mo makikita yung animation. So let's say dito, itong mga butas na yan, yan yung magiging parang space para matakpan yung next na step ng animation. So parang yun yung magiging frame by frame niya habang umiikot yan. So that's so true. So pang-apat, I'm sure siguro madami namang gumagawa sa inyo nito or marami nang nakatry. Ito naman is a flip book or flick book. Ayan. It's a booklet with a series of images that very gradually change from one page to the next, so that when the page are viewed in quick succession, the image appear to animate by simulating motion or some other changes. So John Barnes Linnet patented the first flip book in 1868, known as the Kenyograph. So ganito yung itsura ng flip book. So yung usually sa nung time namin during high school, gumagawa kami ng ganito, parang simpleng simpleng drawing lang sa bawat page ng notebook. Tapos piniflip namin siya. Tapos para siyang nag-animate talaga. So yung tawag pala doon is flipbook. Okay? And we also have praxinoscope. And it was 1877. Ito naman was an animation device that the successor to Sotro. And it was invented in France in 1877 by Charles Emile Reynaud. Like Sotro, or like the Sotro, it used a strip of picture placed around the inner surface of a spinning cylinder. So, ito naman, para siyang katulad ng Sotro. No? Pero ang naiba kasi sa sa praxinoscope, ito siya, ganito siya. Ganito yung itsura niya. So, yung image nasa gilid, mapapansin nyo, meron meron siyang yung pinapaikot ng kamay. Tapos, pag pinaikot mo yan, magro-rotate ngayon itong praxinoscope. Tapos, mapapansin nyo, meron siyang parang speaker. Parang dyan lumalabas yung sound. So, ito meron na siyang parang tunog. Okay? So, that's praxinoscope. Next naman, we have SU. And ito naman, from the word itself, SU. Supraxiscope. So, initially, named sugraphyscope and sugroscope, is an early device for displaying moving image and is considered an important predecessor of the moving projector. It was conceived by a photographer pioneer Edward Muybridge in 1879 and built for him by January 1880 to project his famous chromatographic picture in motion and thus prove that these were authentic. Ganito yung itsura niya. Kaya siya natawag na Sotro kasi animals yung di-display. Makita ko yung gumagalaw nito. Wait lang. Ay, ano pala to? Supraxiscope. Sorry. Ito yan. So, ganito yung niya, yung itsura niya. So, same, gumagamit sila ng stroboscopic principle, no? So, doon talaga nag-base lahat ng animation. So, ito, pinapaikot, tapos para siyang nag-jump-jump yung kabayo. Okay, so that's supraxiscope. So, on the earliest animation on film naman, or 1888, 1908, earliest animation on film. So, we have the chatter optic. So, optical chatter is an animated moving picture system invented by Emile Reynaud and patented in 1888. Standard picture film and printed animation film. So pag ito yung talagang pang chatter, mga pang optical chatter. Okay? Tapos from the word itself, standard picture film. Tapos printed animation film. So literal na standard picture, tapos mga literal na printed animation. So ayan. So, this is an example of chatter optic. So, mapapansin nyo, nasa teatro, ayan, yan, mapapansin nyo yung mga nanonood, nasa chatter sila. And then, meron tayong nagpi-play ng animation, tapos merong device na ginagamit. And, itong animation na to are moving picture. And it is being presented using the system that was developed. Okay, so this one it used a system to display the animation. Also, ito naman during 1888 to 1908, these are the kumbaga mga important individuals that lays the foundation of modern animation. So since we are talking about history, we are um, kumbaga getting to know the people behind the development of today's modern generation na animation. Okay, so we have um, James Stewart Blackton. So James Stewart Blackton was a British American film producer and director of silent era. One of the pioneers of motion picture, he founded Vitagraph Studio in 1897. He was one of the first filmmakers to use the technique of stop motion and drone animation. So, is considered a father of American animation. So, tandaan niyo yan. So, James Stewart Blackton, father of American animation. Sino yung father ng Filipino animation? Meron ba? So, and was the first to bring many classic plays and books on the screen. So, eto siya. Ito yung kanyang itsura. So, tandaan nyo, baka mapanaginipan nyo mamaya. Joke lang. Okay, we also have email code. So, email Eugene Jean Louis Cortet. Apa namang pangalan to? So, was a French caricaturist of the largely forgotten incoherent movement, cartoonist and animator, also called the father of the cartoon or the father of animated cartoon. So kung kung si James Stewart, father of American animation, si Emil Cole naman was the father of animated cartoon. Okay? Yung kanina, si James Stewart, merong American. So, si Emil Cole naman, animated cartoon. Okay? So, he was the first film-based animator. Ito siya. Ito yung itsura niya. Ayan. So, baka merong nakakilala sa inyo kay Emil Cole. Naka-friend niya sa Facebook. So, we also have Sinas Winsor McKay. Ayan. Was the first or was an American cartoonist. So mahilig sila sa mga American. So was an American cartoonist and animator. He is best known for the comic strip Little Nemo and the animated film Gertie the Dinosaur in 1940. So starting with a short 1911 film of his most popular character, so Little Nemo, successful newspaper cartoonist Winsor McKay gave much more detail to his hand-drawn animation than any animation previously seen in cinema. So he focused on this animation, and his film was 1914 film. It was called Gertie the Dinosaur. So Gertie the Dinosaur featured an early example of character development in drawing animation. So, ito yung itsura niya. So, pag sinabi natin character development, parang merong nangyayari dun sa character natin. So, for example, from being a baby dinosaur, it grew up to an adult dinosaur. So, there was a development to the character. So since nag-focus nga si Sinas or Winsor McKay sa kanyang film na ginagawa, which is Gertie the Dinosaur, so maybe ito yung mga naisip niya na magkaroon ng character development sa aking animation. So hindi lang yung parang GIF na style na mabilis lang matapos, so this one, it involves character development. So, ito daw yung pinaka or one of the early example of character development na drawing. So, we also have ito naman Bear Studio. So, in around 1913, Raoul Beer developed the peg system that made it easier to align drawings by perforating two holes below each drawing and placing them on two fixed pins. Yeah. He also used a slash and tear technique to not have to draw the complete background or other motionless parts for every frame. So, ganito yung itsura ng, ito siya, ito si Raoul Beer. Tapos, ito yung, ang tawag dito, peg bar, if I'm not mistaken. So, the peg bar, it used the peg system. Okay? So, hindi ito yung sinasabing peg system, ha? Pero, gumagamit siya ng peg system. So, the peg system, there are two holes below each drawings. No? Dalawang butas doon sa baba ng drawing and placing them on two fixed pins. So, ganon. Okay. So, ganito yan. And this one, si Raoul Beer. So, yan yung kanyang picture. So, we also have Bray Productions. So, Bray Production in 1914, John Bray opened the John Bray Studios, which revolutionized the way animation was created. So, Earl Hurd, one of Bray's employees, patented the cell technique. This involves animating moving object on transparent celluloid sheets. Animators photograph the sheets over a stationary background image to generate the sequence of image. So, in this time, so etong panahon na to, 90s, no? 1990s na generation, dito na nauso yung paggamit ng cell technique, which was then patented by Earl Hurd. So, ito yan. So, ito yung picture niya. So, baka friend niya rin to sa Facebook. We also have Felix the Cat. So, in 1919, Automaser of Pat Sullivan Studio created Felix the Cat. So, si Felix the Cat, si Pat Sullivan, the studio head, took all of the credit for Felix, a common practice in the early days of studio animation. So, Felix the Cat was distributed by Paramount Studio and attracted a large audience, eventually becoming one of the most recognized cartoon character in film history. Felix was the first cartoon to be merchandised. So, eto siya, si Felix the Cat. So, meron ba sa inyo nakaabot kay Felix the Cat? So, siya daw yung pinakaunang character, tandaan ha, pinakaunang character that was merchandised. So, kumbaga merong mga merchandise na binibenta na related kay Felix the Cat. Pwedeng teddy bear, pwedeng damit, etc. Okay? Ayan. So, we also have Snow White. So, ito 1930s na, mga 1930s. Snow White was a breakthrough of the animated, breakthrough ng animated film, kumbaga. Kasi, yung Snow White became a success. Maraming nag-follow na nung Snow White. And etong Snow White na to, it was the animation na nagpasikat sa Disney. Snow White was the first Disney princess. Alam niyo ba yan? So at least 8 animated feature films were released bago yung Disney Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So while at least another 2 earlier animated feature projects remained unfinished. But then Snow White became a success and doon na nagsimula yung mga princess ng Disney. Okay, so Disney na yung gumawa nito. Ito yan. Pindot ko lagi yun. Ito yan. So, Snow White, ito yung mga dwarfs, 7 dwarfs. So, it was Disney, no? Yung create no film na to. So, I think that will sum up the discussion about the history of animation. This one falls under 1930s. Meron pa yan, 1940 hanggang 2000, hanggang sa panahon natin, but I didn't cover it na. I only focus doon sa parang mga old documents or old resources for us to be aware ng mga pinanggalingan, sino yung nag-develop ng ganito, ganyan, etc. Okay? So, for more information, if you would like to dig deeper about the history of animation, we have our resources. You can type this link sa inyong mga browser and you can read the article about the history of animation. Okay, so I think that's all, students. Thank you very much for listening and learning with us. So if you have question, you can ask your question during our synchronous time. Okay, thank you very much and have a great day.